So welcome again to this particular session. So under the first step, we need to do the analysis. Basic purpose, as you know, and we are very well familiar by now, is to actually segregate the entire current accounting period of subsidiary company into pre and post. Besides that, we need to actually have assessment of degree of control to know actually what control exists in the hands of the what we call parent and of course the non-controlling interest. Then analysis of other equity. Other equity stands for profit and loss account, general reserve, and other reserves of what we call subsidiary company. We need to segregate. That is the foremost point. In order to segregate the same, we have to very coolly and patiently, with patience, have a good analysis of the total existing balance of profit and loss account as per the balance sheet of subsidiary company. We will consider it. We will take into account the opening balance. Then we will take the difference. It will deliver the profits earned by subsidiary company in the current accounting period. Because in this case, entire current accounting period is a post-acquisition period, these profits will be considered as post-acquisition profits. And just a moment ago, I told you post-acquisition profits from the perspective of parent limited will be considered as revenue nature profits, because these profits it will be considered that these profits have been earned by parent on account of what we call their efforts. Whereas these profits, which will accrue, of course, to what parent limited, but it will be considered that these profits are accruing to what we call parent without their involvement in the subsidiary company, because these profits have been earned prior to what we call the acquisition of subsidiary. So these profits are similar to the free gifts, and that is why considered as what we call capital nature profit in the eyes of parent limited. So once we are able to do these steps, so the next step is whatever analysis you have done, you can tabulate this analysis by way of a table. So tabular representation, step 4. Tabular representation. Under the tabular representation, what you are supposed to write, you will write here details or particulars, whatever you may like to write, in one column. Here you write amount. Then you write parents P and their share is 3/5, and in the next column you write non-controlling interest. Remember one thing, non-controlling interest in simple words means outsiders, correct? 2/5. In the subsidiary company, parent has stakes of 3/5 while outsiders do have stakes, and they have stakes to the extent of 2/5. Now what you are supposed to do, let me stress down the lines. Work should be absolutely neat, spick and span. Now, under this tabular representation, you write A, capital profits. Remember one thing, all such profits which have been earned by subsidiary prior to the date of control are considered as capital profits. In this case, subsidiary company has only one other equity item, profit and loss account, 5 lakh. Out of that 5 lakh, 2 lakh have been earned prior to the date of acquisition. So I will write profit and loss as at 1/4/20. That is opening balance. Amount of opening balance is 2 lakh. So this profit will be considered as capital profit. Of course, whether profits are of capital nature, of revenue nature, parent and every shareholder will have a right in it. Parent has 3/5 stake. So that will give it 1,20,000, I think so. Just take care of the fact of calculations. And outsiders will have share in it to the extent of 80,000. Correct? Now, after writing capital profit, you write post-acquisition profits. Revenue profits. Capital profits, revenue profits. Revenue profits means such profits which have been earned after the date of acquisition. In this case, revenue profits are post-acquisition profits, and post-acquisition profit we have just seen is equal to 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs have been earned in the post-acquisition period, correct? And these profits will be considered as revenue profits. So 3 lakhs, that will give me how much? 60 into 3, 1,80,000, that is parent shares, and 120, I think so, yes it is. 120 will be share of outsiders, that is non-controlling interest. In accounting language, what I will call it, please pay attention, equity on the date of acquisition. In the light of IFRS 10, we will call it equity on the date of acquisition. Equity on the date of acquisition, and on this date, equity is 2 lakh. Equity stands for share capital plus reserve, correct? And share capital plus reserve is also equal to net assets, don't forget. And out of this equity, 120 belongs to P Limited, parent, 80,000 belongs to non-controlling interest holders, isn't it? Isn't it? Then, as far as this equity is concerned, of course, this is post-acquisition equity. Generally, we call it equity after the date of acquisition. Equity after the date of acquisition, changes in equity after the date of acquisition is 3 lakh, and out of that 180 belongs to what we call P Limited, and 120 belongs to, as I said, outsiders, that is non-controlling interest holders. If you have reached till up to this particular point, the next point needs some discussion, and that point is calculation, because IFRS 10 states very clearly, while preparing consolidated financial statement, non-controlling interest need to be found out besides goodwill and bargain, goodwill or gain on bargain purchase. And gain on bargain purchase is nothing new, it is capital reserve, correct? So the next step is, we call it calculation of goodwill, calculation of goodwill on gain on bargain purchase, gain on bargain purchase. Gain on bargain purchase is a term nowadays used instead of capital reserve. Is it clear to you or not? Now, because you have become thorough with it, correct? Now, because you have become thorough till up to this particular step, now we shall go over to what we call step number 5. But what I was just about to say, that this step needs explanation in the sense, remember one thing, even though we are covering IFRS 10, that is in the Indian context Ind AS 110, but as each one of us are very well familiar with the fact that as far as calculation of goodwill or gain on bargain purchase is concerned, that is covered by which IFRS? Covered by IFRS 3. In the Indian context, we may say Ind AS 103. Ind AS 103. This particular part has been covered by IFRS 3, that is Ind AS 103. That means we have to do the calculation of the goodwill in the light of what we call Ind AS 103 or IFRS 3. Calculation of goodwill is not governed, as I said, and time and again I have been saying now, that we need to take into that account that we cannot compute the goodwill as per Ind AS 110. There is no provisions for that. So, in fact, Ind AS 110 or IFRS 10 clearly states that goodwill calculation will be based upon IFRS 3. So, we have to take that point into account. But the point here is that I'm giving you two approaches to compute the goodwill. Obviously, the first step would appear quite easy, but this is the traditional step, to be very honest with you, generally covered by the existing accounting standards, correct? In India, existing accounting standard 21 deals with that, and in your nations, whatever standard was earlier prior to the what we call convergence of IFRS or advent of IFRS. So you need to take that into account. But traditionally, goodwill used to be computed this way. See here. See, we cannot understand this standard without doing lots of questions. Simply theoretical statements will never ever make you perfect in this particular standard. You need to keep that into your mind. So among those among those who are ready to sweat it out, need to go through these sessions, correct? Very important. Now pay attention here. First approach of calculation of goodwill, this is traditional approach. This is not IFRS 3. This is traditional approach. I am simply writing traditional. Actually, in the Indian context, it is as per existing standard AS 21. Correct? I am simply writing traditional approach. Under traditional approach, in order to compute the goodwill or capital reserve, because traditionally we used to call it goodwill or capital reserve, correct? When parent limited invests, in fact, logically speaking, when any person invests anywhere, he is interested in finding out the net gain or loss over that transaction. Take a simple case. If suppose I am going to buy this pen from the shop, obviously, when I will buy, say I will pay 10 rupees, 20 rupees, I will try to have a look over this, whether it is worthy of the amount whether it is worth the amount which I just churned out to actually acquire this pen. Are you getting my point or not? It is obviously whenever we invest, whenever we are going to make investment, we are interested in finding out the net gain or loss. So under the traditional approach, how net gain or loss is found, and that net gain or loss is termed as goodwill or what we call capital reserve. Capital reserve nowadays is known as gain on bargain purchase. Because right now I am telling you the solution from the traditional approach, this part only, rest of the things we are doing as per IFRS. Now, see here. Under the traditional approach, first of all, I will have a look how much amount I paid to acquire the control. So for that, I will write investments made. Investments which I have made in the subsidiary company. For that, I will have to look over the question. This was the question. And I have written here, we have acquired 3,000 shares, but we paid 7 lakh for the same. This is the amount which we paid. So amount paid is 7 lakh, which I am writing it over here. We paid 7 lakh rupees to acquire the control. It is a capital expenditure. Because it is a capital expenditure, resultant items will be of capital nature. That means resultant loss will be capital loss, and capital loss is termed as goodwill, and resultant gain will be termed as, resultant capital gain will be termed as capital reserve. This is a capital expenditure. Correct? That is why you will have result either as a goodwill, if goodwill means or goodwill stands for capital loss, or result will be your capital gain, and capital gain is termed as what we call capital reserve. So investments you have made. In lieu of that, what you acquired, we call it share in net assets. Remember one thing. Just a moment ago, when I was discussing the opening lines in the last session, in fact, I told you the meaning of net assets. I told you the significance of stakes. I told you that whenever we are going to invest in another entity, in that case, we will acquire stakes in the net assets. And net assets stands for share capital and reserve. Don't let it escape out of your memory. So by investing 7 lakh, you got a share in the share capital. Net assets stands for equity. Remember one thing. And equity comprises of share capital. So when you invested 7 lakh, how much share capital you acquired? 3,000 shares you acquired of rupees 100 each, of course. So that means 3 lakh worth of share capital was acquired by you. You got my point? Besides, you also acquired share in reserves, share in other equity we call it nowadays, but for simplicity's sake I will still call and maintain these wordings what we call reserves. When we acquired the control, remember one thing, standard is very clear. On the date of acquisition, we need to find out the goodwill, capital loss or capital gain. We made a capital expenditure of 7 lakh. Against that, what we acquired? We acquired share capital. It is a capital benefit. And we also acquired some capital gains, capital profits. That was the reason why we were segregating the subsidiary companies' reserves into pre and post period. Because we want to know how much capital gains are accruing to us. We are not interested in revenue gains, correct? Why we are interested in capital gains? Because we are trying to compare the capital expenditure with the capital nature benefits. Capital nature benefits are accruing to me in the form of share capital and some what we call share in the capital profits of subsidiary company. Is it clear to you or not? So you must understand why Parent Limited is actually interested in segregating all the other equity items of subsidiary company into pre and post, because such profits which relates to pre-acquisition period are considered as capital profits, and capital profits will be used over here to find out net capital gain or loss. We cannot use here the revenue profits. Is it clear to you? So now I will write, one, we acquired share capital and we also acquired some capital profits. Capital profits indirectly means equity on the date of acquisition. In this table, we have written 2 lakhs. This 2 lakh is nothing but this is the equity on the date of control, on the date of acquisition. Correct? Out of this 2 lakh, your share is 1 lakh 20. So you are going to write here your share 1 lakh 20. So now you must understand the logic also. Simply doing the question will be not enough. You must understand what we mean by goodwill or capital gain. Why it is a goodwill? Because you are comparing the capital expenditure with the capital gain. So resultant item will be of capital nature, and resultant item will be either loss or profit. If happens to be a loss, it will be goodwill. Happens to be a profit, then it will be a capital reserve. So traditionally, you can see actually it is pretty easier to compute goodwill. All we need to do is to compare the investment which we made with the capital nature item or capital benefits which we acquired in the form of share capital and what we call equity. So 4 lakh 20 we acquired all in all. So because we paid more, acquired less, result is a capital loss. From the party who pays and incurs capital loss, it will be considered as goodwill. 2,80,000 will be considered as goodwill. However, although it looks very simple, it looks very easy, but we need not require to follow this. Because if we are going to do such solution in the examination, I don't think actually any examiner would actually fetch us any mark. No, not at all. The reason being is very simple. We have to meet the parameters of Ind AS 103. They are testing our comprehension. So in this case, why I'm saying Ind AS 103, whenever I will say Ind AS 103, it will also stand for IFRS 3. Both are absolutely same. Remember one thing. Now I will use B, second approach, that is Ind AS 3 or IFRS. Let me first of all write IFRS 3, and all IFRS of India are known as Indian Accounting Standard. In short form, we are writing them as Ind AS. But our IFRS carry a series of hundreds. Suppose if our IFRS 3 is there, you will add 100, it will become 103. So we may say Ind AS 103. Ind AS 103 is nothing but IFRS 3. So international student need not require to worry about that perhaps we are actually simply taking care of Ind AS 3. No, in fact we are taking care of IFRS 3. So as per Ind AS 103, calculation of goodwill, how calculation of goodwill will be done? Actually, IFRS 3 deals with business combination. Those among you who have already gone through business combination and my series of business combination, to be very honest with you, to be very honest also, I haven't yet uploaded on the YouTube business combination series in English version. But over there we have dealt with this concept at great length, widest possible length. But over here you need not require to worry on that count. We are still going to take each and every scratch of calculation of goodwill as in the light of Ind AS 103. As per Ind AS 103, in order to compute the goodwill, we need to know A, net identifiable asset. In simple words, it means net assets, but still I will write net identifiable asset. Net identifiable assets on the date of control, DOC, at fair value. In fact, all the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, they stress upon fair value, you know better than I in this case. So, net identifiable assets on the date of acquisition at fair value. Now suppose if I would ask you, could you let me know, in this case, could you let me know the fair value of net assets on the date of acquisition? Could you let me know that? If suppose I would ask you. Remember one thing, you have balance sheet as on 31st of 3/21. You don't have the balance sheet as at 1st 4/20. That is the opening date. And this is also the date of acquisition. No doubt here, on the closing date, net assets means assets minus liability, of course, net assets will always be equal to equity, as we have been saying so often, and we also know that equity is equal to share capital plus other equity, and for simplicity's sake I am writing reserves and surplus. We know all these things, isn't it or not? But problem is that if I am going to adopt this approach, it is not going to deliver me net assets on this date, because IFRS 3 is absolutely clear. We need to have net identifiable assets on the date of acquisition at fair value, on the date of acquisition. But if you have listened to each and every word of the lecture, by now you can have some clues. Just a moment ago I told you, net assets means assets minus liability, and which is nothing but equity, and equity is nothing but share capital plus reserve. Now suppose if I say share capital plus reserve and surplus or other equity on date of acquisition, on date of control, and if I will combine these two, then it will become net assets on the date of acquisition. Are you getting my point or not? Try to pay attention. We know equity is equal to share capital plus other equity, that is reserve and surplus. Now we can reframe this. If we have share capital, because share capital will remain unchanged, correct? Whatever at the end of the year, it must have been in the beginning of the year. But that is not the case with respect to reserve and surplus. Reserve and surplus in the beginning must be different at a different amount, and at the end must be at a different figure. So if we can say, and if we can understand if we have been able to understand the logic, then now we can reframe this statement into this one. Share capital plus reserve and surplus on the date of control will be equal to net assets on the date of control. It will be equal to net assets on the date of control, isn't it or not? Do you agree with me? This will be net assets on the date of control. But problem is that as per IFRS 3, such net assets must be at fair value. However, IFRS is also very clear. If there is no separate fair value given, always presume book value to be the fair value. So now we have reached the conclusion that net assets on the date of control must be equal to this much. See here, your share capital is 5 lakh. Please pay attention. Your share capital, your means subsidiaries. Share capital of subsidiary company is 5 lakhs. And they have only one item of other equity. And on the date of acquisition, other equity is 2 lakhs. So share capital plus equity on the date of acquisition will give you net identifiable assets. So net identifiable asset is equal to 7 lakh. As per IFRS 3, you need to compute the goodwill. For the same, you need to have what we call this. That is net identifiable asset on the date of acquisition. And most of, unfortunately, very sorry to state that, even I have seen some good professional body carrying their what we call modules are not adopting this way of computing the goodwill or capital reserve. In fact, they are still moving with what we call traditional approach. So we need to be very careful that we are at this level dealing with IFRS. So we need to understand each and every concept in the light of or against the backdrop of what we call IFRS 3. So 7 lakh. One thing. Now what you will do, you will write here subtract. Subtract what? Once again, A, non-controlling interest. How to compute the non-controlling interest? Remember one thing, when I say non-controlling interest, in order to compute the goodwill, it means non-controlling interest on the date of acquisition. So non-controlling interest on the date of acquisition. Non-controlling interest, it means how much net assets belongs to outsider on the date of acquisition. Entire meaning of this sentence is how much worth of assets, net assets, belongs to outsiders on the date of acquisition. You have just seen on the date of acquisition, your equity stands for net assets. So 5 lakh plus 2 lakh on the date of acquisition. And we know that the stakes of non-controlling interest is 2/5. So I will simply take 2/5 of 7 lakh. It will deliver me on the date of acquisition out of total assets worth rupees 7 lakh, how much belongs to outsiders. So subtract this. It will be equal to how much? 5. Will it be equal to 2 lakh 80? Should I compute? I will have to compute. My maths has become very weak with the passing of age. What can I do? Can't help it. You don't have any control over the age. Yes, it is 2 lakh 80. So I can consider myself young, if you allow me to. 2 lakh 80. 2 lakh 80,000. Got it? All you need to do is now find out consideration. Consideration means in order to acquire control, how much amount you are paying. Consideration. Remember one thing, we are not only solving the question, we are trying to analyze the things also. That is why it is consuming time. Once we will become deft with it, we can solve the question within a flick of a second then. But first, to make the things absolutely clear, consideration means the amount which you transferred in order to acquire the control. How much amount you transferred? 7 lakhs. That is your investment. Consideration is nothing. 7 lakh. Just pay attention. technically, you are acquiring control of 7 lakh worth of assets on the date of acquisition I'm talking about. Technically, you are having a control of 7 lakh, even though out of 7 lakh, logically speaking, 2 lakh 80 do not belong to you. So if you subtract this much, suppose if I subtract from 7 lakh 2 lakh 80,000, how much I will be left up with? 420. Because total net assets on the date of acquisition of subsidiary company 7 lakh, but out of 7 lakh 280 belongs to, that is why I have written subtraction. 2 lakh 80 belongs to outsiders. So we are left up with 420. That means logically 7 lakh minus 280 is equal to 420. It means 420 worth of net assets we are acquiring. But we are paying 7 lakh. So our payment is higher. That is why 420 minus 7 lakh will give me a figure of 2 lakh 80,000. So you can see, as far as Ind AS 103 is concerned, I would love the professional body to use this method, correct, rather than going by the what we call traditional method. So some of the professional body I was just flipping through the what we call pages are not adopting this approach, especially in comprehensive questions. They have dealt at length regarding goodwill section, but under comprehensive question I have seen they are still maintaining what we call traditional approach. So one would love them to actually go for this approach, correct? So under IFRS 3, how you are going to compute the goodwill, I am very sure you must have driven some idea out of it. All you need to do is to be very careful that net identifiable assets on the date of acquisition, sometime it can put us into a sort of trouble. How we will find out. But if we have gone through the logics, net assets, equity, then it should not be a big problem for you. On the date of acquisition, you need to take care of. So this is how goodwill will be computed. Both these approaches will deliver you the same answer without an iota of doubt. So that's what we have in this particular session. Of course, we haven't yet completed the question. Still, we'll talk about that in the upcoming one, no doubt, because one by one we are picking up the threads here. So in the upcoming session, we will have something more to discuss.